The story begins inside a church. Priestess stands in front of a coffin, exhausted by her duties. She stretches and opens the lid, groaning at the sight of the hero, Haruto, who has burned to death this time. Casting a spell, she quickly revives him. Once he is awake, she complains about the constant hassle, noting that he died the day before and the day before that. He remains completely silent and starts walking away. She calls after him, asking why he is alone and where his party is. He ignores the question, stating he is in a hurry, and leaves. She warns him to stop dying so frequently. Despite her warning, she finds him in the coffin again the very next day. From Monday through Wednesday, she revives him constantly. Later, during a waterfall training session, Priestess vents her intense frustration to Chief Priest. She complains about the hero dying multiple times a day and giving her nothing but one-word answers. She wonders aloud why he has no teammates, speculating that he might be cursed or possess a terrible personality. Chief Priest playfully suggests her curiosity might lead to an office romance, startling Priestess so much that she slips and falls into the water. Chief Priest warns her not to get too involved with a work partner, prompting her to defensively agree to leave the hero alone. The next day, she revives Haruto yet again. Unable to contain her curiosity, she asks if he is scared of dying or if he avoids teammates due to some religious conviction. He remains quiet at first, but finally admits that being around people is actually more painful for him than dying. This revelation confuses her, but she realizes he is just extremely introverted. Knowing she thinks he is strange, he acknowledges that he relies on her magic entirely too much. Surprised by his sudden chattiness, she listens as he apologizes for being such a burden. She admits the work is exhausting, but confesses that the hero revival allowance pays incredibly well. Relieved that she benefits from his constant deaths, he bids her farewell and promises to do his best as he heads out once more. Priestess offers to walk him to the exit, and he politely thanks her. As they stroll, she reflects on his earlier confession about relying too heavily on her magic. She realizes that even though he constantly comes back to life, repeatedly dying on the battlefield must be incredibly painful. They stop at the gate. Just as he prepares to leave, she asks him to wait. She briefly pauses to pray for him, causing a sudden, gentle breeze to blow through the area. She then bestows a heartfelt blessing upon him, playfully admitting that she rarely offers such special prayers. Surprised, Haruto confesses that this is the first time he has been treated so kindly. She smiles modestly, but he earnestly vows to remember her kindness for the rest of his life. After wishing her well, he activates his teleportation magic and vanishes. Stretching her arms, she heads back inside, feeling proud of her good deed and hopefully anticipating a raise at work. However, her satisfaction shatters the moment she steps indoors and spots his floating coffin waiting for her again. Frustrated, she groans that his lifetime was ridiculously short. The priestess opens the coffin and winces, noting that the hero is completely crushed to death this time. She casts her magic and revives him. He sits up, apologizes for the constant trouble, and immediately tries to head back to the dungeon. She stops him, insisting he rest until his pain subsides. Curious, she asks why he even chose to be a hero, pointing out that his introverted nature makes him better suited for a mage or priest class. He quietly explains that his parents are heroes, though she argues he should live for himself. He tries to mention his sister, but the conversation quickly shifts to her own abilities. She boasts about her natural talent, joking that she has the best job because she gets paid incredibly well just to pray. He warns that her superiors will scold her for saying that. She sighs and complains that constantly dying heroes keep her entirely too busy. Seeing him instantly become gloomy and guilty over this, she quickly backtracks and cheers him up. Changing the subject, she pulls out her phone and asks to take a selfie with him for social media. He agrees but doubts anyone will react to him. She confidently posts it, and the picture instantly goes viral with thousands of likes and comments. While she gleefully watches the numbers rise, she asks him a serious question. If he is a hero, why does he die so often? Does he lack proper gear? Suddenly, he becomes very talkative, launching into a detailed explanation about how he always prepares the best possible equipment and fully analyzes the terrain and enemies before every battle. Amused, she teasingly points out his sudden burst of energy. Haruto explains that the topic is actually quite easy to answer. He uses an analogy to show that no matter how powerful a magical tool is, its effectiveness depends entirely on the user. In his case, even with the best gear, he is simply too weak. Priestess laughs uncontrollably at his brutal self-deprecation. She suggests he just find teammates to carry revival items for him. However, he admits that asking strangers to risk their lives is impossible for him. He gloomily adds that for an introvert, negotiating with capable people is actually worse than dying. Realizing something, she points out that he seems perfectly fine talking to her. He earnestly attributes this to her amazing personality, claiming she must possess a special skill that allows introverts to open up. Smirking, she jokes that this must be the real reason the church scouted her, playfully calling herself a genius. He completely agrees, noting that while she is the right person in the right place, he is the exact opposite. Seeing his embarrassment, she gently suggests that since he dies so much, he should probably just find a different job. He admits he thought the same and even consulted his parents, who were the previous heroes. However, his father simply told him that if he keeps learning from death and pushes forward through trial and error, he will eventually defeat the Demon King. She is entirely baffled by this reckless advice. He explains that surviving countless life or death situations probably ruined his parents' sense of mortality. While she finds his parents deeply unsettling, he resolves to follow his father's advice and try a bit longer. Shaking her head, she concludes that his own sense of life and death is completely messed up, too. Internally, Haruto admits that he hates pain and feels entirely unsuited for the job. He often wants to run away, but knowing he gets to see her every time he dies actually makes him a little happy. Aloud, he casually remarks that his sense of life and death is definitely breaking, but he accepts it as his duty. Priestess laughs, calling him crazy, but acknowledging that he truly is a hero. Since the situation cannot be helped, she promises to revive him as many times as it takes and encourages him to do his best. He deeply appreciates her support. As he turns to leave, she stops him and seriously urges him to survive this time. She complains that it is exhausting and a massive pain to keep reviving him. He warmly agrees, having figured as much, and finally sets off. Once he is gone, she takes a deep breath and decides to pray so he does not die again so soon. However, moments later, she finds him lying dead in the coffin once more. Completely exasperated, she furiously wishes he would just change his job. The chief priest scolds Risa, completely exhausted by her behavior. She demands that Risa listen carefully, arguing that her casual attitude, way of speaking, clothes, makeup, and nails do not fit their strict teachings at all. Risa easily brushes off the criticism. She defends herself by pointing out that she does her job perfectly, and her successful revival results should be all that matters. Annoyed, Chief Priest internally grumbles about her subordinate talking back. Before the argument can escalate, a coffin suddenly appears in front of them. Recognizing it as the heroes, Risa immediately takes charge. Knowing the sight will be gruesome, she quickly pushes Chief Priest out of the room, claiming it is too awful for her to look at. Alone, she opens the coffin to find him burned to death once again. Glad she kept her superior outside, she casts her revival spell. When he wakes up, he immediately apologizes for dying and making her revive him yet again. Surprisingly, she tells him she will let it slide today and actually thanks him for dying. Confused, he listens as she explains the entire situation. Realizing his painful death successfully saved her from a strict lecture, he laughs and happily admits he is glad he died. She jokes that his life as a hero feels way too cheap. She then explains that her superior expects proper behavior and appearance to show gratitude for God's magic. However, Risa confidently points out that her magic works flawlessly even with her current makeup and nails. In fact, she boasts that she could easily cast revival spells while casually scrolling on her phone or even using her feet. Amused, Haruto agrees with her logic as she happily concludes that God is not narrow-minded and that her outfit is undeniably cute. Internally, he blushes, realizing that if he could casually call someone cute, he wouldn't be an introvert. Instead, he compliments her makeup application, calling it an amazing skill since drawing on curved, uneven surfaces like faces and nails is incredibly difficult. Riisa realizes he is comparing makeup to art and asks if he draws. He humbly admits he does and takes out a sketchbook. He explains that he is creating a bestiary to document the traits and weaknesses of the monsters his father, the 22nd hero, defeated. Showing her the book, he compares his father's rough sketches to his own highly detailed illustrations. Amazed by his talent, she suggests he switch careers to focus on art instead of constantly dying as a hero. However, he believes he can do both. She insists his future descendants will definitely benefit from this book. The mention of descendants makes him panic, as he has never even been in a relationship. She laughs, assuring him that if he defeats the Demon King, he will easily find a partner. He is slightly taken aback that beating the Demon King is a requirement for romance, but promises to do his best. The conversation shifts to the Demon King reviving centuries earlier than usual. Haruto is visibly frustrated, complaining that this early revival completely ruined his life plan to rely on his father's legacy and live off his art. Fired up, he declares he will never forgive the Demon King for this massive inconvenience. Amused by his bizarre motivation, she agrees it is entirely weird. He wonders aloud if someone broke the seal or if his father simply messed up. She smiles, noting that both possibilities are awful. Despite his weakness, his curiosity and anger motivate him to keep being a hero a bit longer. As he prepares to leave, He finally musters the courage to tell her that her outfit looks nice and cute. Both of them blush heavily. However, Riisa immediately stops him from leaving. She drags him directly to Chief Priest and forces him to repeat the compliment out loud. Because the recognized hero officially approves of the outfit, a defeated Chief Priest has no choice but to drop the dress code argument. A huge dragon rampages across the battlefield. Mia panics, but Mao bravely volunteers to buy time so the others can escape. Though Mia gets highly emotional over her ally's sacrifice, Rifai forces her to keep running. Observing from a cliff above, Haruto debates whether to intervene. He worries that stepping in might be too intrusive, but the party is clearly outmatched. However, upon noticing they are an all-female group, his extreme introversion kicks in. He gets incredibly nervous, fearing any attempt to help them will just lead to an awkward misunderstanding. Down below, the group struggles. Rifai insists they retreat, but Mia refuses to abandon Mao. Suddenly, the massive Garavionia monster whips its tail, striking Mao to the ground. Before the beast can finish her off, Haruto leaps in front of it. The girls are completely stunned by his sudden appearance. He charges forward, executing his 17th secret sword art. With a powerful downward slash, he pierces the monster's head, killing it instantly. Watching in awe, Rifai and Mia realize his identity. They recognize him as the 23rd hero, the legendary immortal who constantly fights and dies alone. Just as one threat ends, an Ordurum, a rapid-striking orc, lunges at the downed Mao. Haruto quickly grabs her and slides her to safety. As the orc viciously strikes his back, he ignores the heavy blows and orders her to run back to her allies. Once she is safely away, he turns around and unleashes his 6th secret sword art, slicing the orc in half with a single strike. Having taken severe damage from shielding her, he coughs up blood and mutters that his condition is rapidly worsening. Meanwhile, back at the church, Riisa happily sings a song while using her magic to quickly clean the room. Chief Priest suddenly barges in and furiously scolds her. She strictly reminds Riisa that magic is a sacred power granted by God and absolutely should not be wasted on mundane chores. Chief Priest firmly reprimands Riisa for using magic to clean the dust on the floor and the dirt on the windows. She insists that human tasks should be accomplished with human effort. Riisa argues, asking if she can at least use magic to reach high places, but her superior tells her they will simply hire professionals. Chief Priest warns that magical power has strict limits and must be conserved, especially since the hero dies at such an abrupt frequency. Just then, a coffin materializes in the room. Both women sigh in utter exasperation at his rapid return. Riisa casually admits she only cleaned the altar half-heartedly anyway, fully expecting him to die again soon. Shocked by her attitude, her superior demands she do both of her jobs properly. Opening the coffin, Riisa sees that Haruto has been beaten to death this time. She casts her ultimate revival spell, but when he wakes up, he winces in obvious pain. She sheepishly admits her magic might not have been perfect because she wasted too much mana on cleaning chores. He kindly waves off her mistake, offering to use an expensive potion to recover the rest of his health. Stopping him, she suggests that if she eats something first, she can recover enough mana to heal him completely. He agrees to the plan. She explains that her magical output changes slightly depending on whether she eats sweet, spicy, or bad-tasting food. He easily understands the concept, comparing it to how his mood affects his brushstrokes when he draws. Capitalizing on his understanding nature, she happily asks to order expensive delivery from a new shop in town and charge it entirely to his hero account. He readily accepts. While they wait, she heavily sighs and urges him to finally gather some allies to carry revival items. She points out that it would make both of their lives much easier. He repeats his fear of talking to people. She advises him to simply ask for their names and invite them to help defeat the Demon King. He argues that asking strangers to jump into immediate danger makes him sound like a complete weirdo. He also notes that names are the core of a person, internally realizing with embarrassment that he does not even know her real name yet. He nervously introduces himself as Haruto. She compliments his name, suddenly grabs his hand, and earnestly begs him to come with her. Surprised, he stammers in confusion. She quickly drops the act, explaining that as a hero, he simply needs to say something similar to recruit allies. He hesitates, claiming he is too introverted to even talk to children. She encourages him to at least practice the words. Struggling, he awkwardly stammers out a request for her strength and asks for her name. She finally introduces herself as Riisa. He compliments her name, but she notices he is still in pain and apologizes for pushing him while he is unrecovered. Just then, the food delivery arrives. Riisa excitedly reveals it is a popular foreign dish called a hamburger. She brags that normally, people have to wait in long lines for it, but using his hero status, bypassed the wait entirely. He feels slightly guilty about abusing his privileges, but she reassures him that he deserves the VIP treatment for constantly risking his life. She eagerly takes a bite but suddenly panics, realizing she forgot to take a picture for social media first. He casually offers to just order it again the next time he dies. She laughs, noting how incredibly cheap he treats his own life. After finishing the burger, she feels fully energized and hyped to cast the perfect healing spell. Internally, he finds it incredibly weird that the magic processing through her body from the food is about to enter his. She gathers all her energy to unleash her ultimate healing move, but the spell instantly fizzles out. Dripping wet from the lukewarm magical backlash, she awkwardly realizes she needs to change clothes. Taking the cue, he decides it is time to head out. Haruto returns to the location where he recently died fighting the monsters. He notices that the all-female party managed to escape safely. Reflecting on the brutal battle, he realizes that while dying is incredibly painful, forcing that same pain onto others just to save the world feels completely wrong to him. He accepts that his view on life and death is broken and that he is hopelessly introverted. However, seeing that his solo actions kept them alive, he resolves to at least keep watching over others. The next day, Risa does her laundry. Exhausted, she finally sits down and reads a message from Erika. The text excitedly reveals that the returner is recruiting party members. Surprised by the unprecedented news, Risa double-checks the link, feeling suspicious but curious. Erika follows up, wondering if anyone would actually apply for such a dangerous job. Risa completely agrees that it feels impossible. 3 days later, Risa scrolls through her phone right before falling asleep. Breaking news flashes across the screen, announcing that Haruto has finally formed a party. She assumes someone actually answered his recruitment ad and figures she will not see him for a while. She peacefully falls asleep, only to be abruptly awakened in the middle of the night by Chief Priest. 3 coffins sit in the middle of the church. Chief Priest frantically explains that the hero's party has been wiped out and orders an immediate revival. Risa groans, complaining that dying in the middle of the night is terrifying and annoying. Acknowledging her exhaustion, Chief Priest uses sacred magic to instantly change both of their pajamas into their official work outfits. Risa laughs at the blatant hypocrisy, pointing out that her superior is clearly too sleepy to follow her own strict rules about wasting magic. Readying her ultimate spell, Risa revives Haruto first. He wakes up, complaining that getting wiped out so quickly is completely ridiculous. She promises to revive his 2 companions as soon as her mana recovers, expressing intense curiosity about who he actually recruited. She downs a potion, wipes her mouth, and feels her energy instantly return. She casts the spell on the second coffin, reviving Elysia, a genius mage. As Elysia wakes up and asks why she is alive, Risa freezes in shock at the sight of a girl. She confirms that she is the priest who revived them. Elysia bows deeply, expressing her profound gratitude. Ignoring her, Risa slowly turns toward Haruto. Feeling completely betrayed, she angrily confronts him for pretending to be a helpless introvert while secretly partying up with girls. He frantically defends himself, swearing it is a huge misunderstanding and claiming that absolutely no one else applied besides these 2. Suddenly, Elysia grabs Risa's hand and kisses it. The bizarre action makes both Haruto and Chief Priest incredibly awkward. Even Risa is uncomfortable as the mage mutters about an extra strong premium potion. Risa quickly pulls her hand away, demanding she let go, but the mage leans in, claiming it smells nice. Annoyed by this erratic behavior, Chief Priest violently strikes Elysia, shouting about the wrath of God. Risa sighs in relief as her superior throws the fainted mage over her shoulder. Chief Priest explains that the hero's companion is showing late-stage symptoms of magic potion addiction. When she asks if he noticed her erratic behavior, Haruto admits he did not watch her that closely. They decide the church will take her in for rehabilitation, which he gratefully accepts. Noticing her superior's exhaustion, Risa suggests she go to sleep. Chief Priest hesitates, arguing that leaving a young man and woman alone at night is irresponsible. Risa bluntly points out that absolutely nothing romantic is going to happen when there is literally a coffin sitting right next to them. Convinced by this flawless logic, Chief Priest agrees to leave so Risa can finish the revivals. Just before her superior departs, Risa secures approval to order delivery on the church's expense account. Alone with the hero, Risa notes it has been about a week since they last saw each other. She bluntly asks how he managed to get wiped out even after forming a party. He admits he is completely ashamed. She mentions seeing his recruitment listing and suggests that might be exactly why such weird people applied, pointing out that public recruiting is generally a terrible idea. Haruto asks what she means. Risa explains that heroes normally form parties with close friends, childhood companions, or people they meet on their journey, individuals with whom they share irreplaceable bonds. Because he did not do that, his public recruitment looks like a sketchy joke or a shady job. Haruto quietly admits that he doesn't have anyone like that. No close friends, no childhood companions, absolutely no one. Riisa accepts this bluntly but points out that his job description is also terrible. She explains that requiring an S rank or higher adventurer for an easy job of just reviving the hero is the worst part. It is like forcing a top-tier chef to wash dishes just to spam revives. Haruto defends his logic, stating that given the immense danger ahead, an SS rank was necessary. He thought narrowing the requirements and making the actual job sound easier would help. Riisa agrees that it is awful, but points out that if even an S rank got wiped out, the second party member must have been weird too. Before Haruto can respond, her delivery arrives. This time, she ordered a massive dragon tail steak set. Watching her, Haruto points out that most people cannot eat a heavy meal like that in the middle of the night. Riisa shrugs, mentioning that everyone says she has a remarkably strong stomach. He hesitates, asking if she is really okay eating right next to a corpse, suggesting she could use another room. Riisa explains that in times like these, you have to eat and sleep whenever you can. Besides, she adds softly, being left alone when you are dead feels incredibly lonely. Hearing this, Haruto realizes something profound. He thinks to himself that when he dies, this person will always stay right by his side. A warm sense of happiness washes over him. He watches quietly with a grateful smile as she absolutely devours the massive meal. Once finished, Riisa sighs in satisfaction, noting that eating meat really calms her down. Fully energized, she announces she is ready to revive the final party member, and Haruto politely asks her to proceed. After 8 long days, Riisa finally revives the third member of the party, an idol-style bard named Fiorente. Waking up in a panic, Fiorente is utterly shocked to find herself alive. Haruto introduces Riisa as the priest who revived them, leaving the young bard overflowing with relief and gratitude as she realizes she is completely back to normal. Later, Riisa serves tea to help calm her down. She asks Fiorente why she decided to join a hero's party in the first place. The bard admits that no matter how hard she tried, she could never increase her fan base. She hoped that by sticking close to a famous hero like Haruto, she might learn how to attract a larger audience. Noticing her lingering gloom, Riisa asks what is wrong. Fiorente confesses she is still terrified of the feeling of death and the possibility that resurrection might fail. Haruto tries to comfort her, casually reminding her that resurrection is almost guaranteed in his party, but his nonchalant attitude only makes her more uneasy. He apologizes, admitting he has never had companions before, but assures her he has died many times and is completely fine. Curious, Riisa asks how a party with such high specs managed to get completely wiped out. Haruto explains that they intended to use the fight as a simple mock battle against a weak enemy. However, the monster unexpectedly used confusion magic it normally saved for one-on-one fights. Elysia, the mage, moved to the front lines and was immediately killed. Seeing her die, a panicked Fiorente fled the battle but tragically triggered a fatal trap. Already affected by the confusion magic, Haruto lost his composure after watching his companions die for the first time, which ultimately led to his own death. Seeing Fiorente blame herself, he reassures her that running away was actually the right decision. Realizing someone is missing, Fiorente asks about Elysia. Riisa explains that the mage had become addicted to magic potions and was taken into the church's care for rehabilitation. Haruto simply shrugs, saying that sounds about right. He then suddenly asks Fiorente what dying felt like, explaining that he rarely gets the chance to talk about it with anyone. Riisa immediately scolds him for asking something so insensitive during their first real conversation, but Fiorente agrees to answer, hoping she can still be helpful. Fiorente says that as she was dying, her life flashed before her eyes. Hearing that, Haruto quietly thinks about how he's seen the same flashbacks so many times that he now imagines dogs and cats just to make them less boring. Fiorente continues, describing the terrifying feeling of her body being dissolved by acid. Haruto silently agrees and even wonders if he should start ranking all the different ways he's died. Finally, she tearfully says the last thing she saw was her parents smiling at her. Completely missing the emotional impact, Haruto cheerfully says he's experienced all of that too, including becoming a spirit and looking down at his own body. Fiorente can only stare at him in stunned silence. Riisa, thoroughly exasperated, calls his behavior death harassment. She hugs the shaken bard to comfort her and decides it's best for everyone to get some rest, offering them spare rooms at the church. Later that night, Haruto lies in bed, staring at the ceiling. He thinks about how much he talked today and smiles, confidently deciding that he might actually be pretty good at socializing. Meanwhile, in her own room, Fiorente is overwhelmed with regret and fear about the job. The next morning, Riisa arrives to greet the hero, but finds Haruto deeply depressed, already reading a formal document. A man named Retria from a resignation agency had arrived earlier to deliver it. He explicitly instructed Haruto not to contact the bard directly, handing over her returned items and a polite letter where Fiorente thanked him for the opportunity despite her lack of usefulness. Seeing how low he is, Risa bluntly points out that this happened entirely because of his death harassment. Haruto apologizes, admitting he was just so happy to finally have something to talk about with someone. Risa sighs, warning him that his sense of life and death is completely broken. He cannot talk about dying to a normal girl like it is a favorite food or a catchy song. Feeling terrible for scaring Fiorente, Haruto declares he will not trouble the church any further and wants to quickly find new companions. Risa stops him, advising him not to force it. She explains that true companions are not something you deliberately gather like tools. Instead, it is a much more relaxed feeling. You simply realize one day that they are already standing beside you. Hearing this, Haruto thinks bitterly about how he recently realized absolutely no one was standing beside him. Trying to be helpful, Risa smiles and points out that, by her own definition, she is kind of like a companion too. She suggests he should just look for someone like her. Haruto stares at her, absolutely dumbfounded. Internally, he panics, realizing she is completely oblivious to the fact that she is insanely good at socializing. She does not even hesitate to interact with someone whose sense of life and death is completely shattered. Out loud, he simply agrees with her, but deep down, he realizes that finding someone with her level of social skill is going to be significantly harder than defeating the Demon King. The next day, a coffin arrives yet again. As usual, Risa is immensely irritated. Opening the lid, she finds Haruto as usual. Using her ultimate move, she revives the hero once more, and as always, he immediately apologizes. Risa, slumping back into her chair to relax, simply greets him with a casual morning. Haruto politely replies, but Risa sighs, noting that he is the third hero she has revived today alone. Looking closely at him, she points out that he looks exhausted and asks what is wrong. Embarrassed, Haruto explains that he has been running around to different offices, submitting paperwork to prove his hero achievements. Risa is surprised this is even a requirement. He complains that the officials constantly scold him for making mistakes on his forms, noting that getting yelled at like a child at his age is rough. Risa bluntly reminds him that it is still significantly better than dying. Haruto apologizes for his lame complaints, but Risa waves it off, telling him that if he doesn't let his frustrations out, they will become too heavy to carry. Ironically, she then starts letting out her own frustrations, loudly complaining that heroes die way too often and that resurrection is seriously a pain. Haruto internally notes that this is just how she is, though he finds it incredibly rich coming from her, considering he is the one who dies the most. Risa sympathizes, admitting that fighting monsters and doing administrative paperwork must be exhausting. She suggests that if his workload is too heavy, he might be better off forming a permanent team. Haruto disagrees, insisting it is easier to work alone. He recalls his brief time teaming up with Elysia and Fiorente, admitting he could barely keep up while trying to maintain a classic trio formation. Curious, he asks how the mage is doing. Risa replies that she is recovering well, but is still in pretty bad shape. Changing the subject, Risa brings up a concerning detail from when he partied with the two girls. She points out that in the recent news, there is no mention of Elysia or Fiorente anywhere, and notes that news about other heroes has also been unusually scarce lately. Haruto guesses that the kingdom might be enforcing strict information control. Risa confirms this, revealing that she recently uploaded a picture of him that blew up instantly on the network, only to be banned right away. To make matters worse, she even received a harsh warning from a very serious authority. Leaning back in her chair, Risa sighs, stating that talking about all of this is just tiring. She wishes someone would hurry up and defeat the Demon King so they could all have more fun. She casually asks Haruto what he wants to do once the world is peaceful again. He admits he has nothing in particular planned. Risa enthusiastically shares that she wants to travel the world and, eventually, find a boyfriend. Haruto notes that if she actually got serious about it, she could get one right away, unlike him. As he thinks about it, however, a sudden realization begins to dawn on him. Haruto looks at her, suddenly realizing that if she actually put effort into finding a boyfriend, he wouldn't stand a chance. He quietly agrees with her. Risa then mentions she has reached her limit and hasn't even had time to eat lunch, asking if she can finally go grab some food. Haruto apologizes for holding her up and says he should head back anyway. As she walks into the door, she wonders aloud whether she should eat meat or fish, ultimately deciding on meat. Haruto turns to say goodbye, but as she bids him to take care, she suddenly gets dizzy and stumbles. He quickly runs over and catches her before she falls. She apologizes, explaining she just felt lightheaded. When Haruto asks if she is okay, she leans into him, hugging him lightly, and asks to just rest against him for a second. Haruto apologizes nervously, but internally, his heart is racing. He thinks about how incredibly cute she is, wishing they could travel the world together. He resolves that if he actually manages to defeat the Demon King, he might genuinely have a chance with her. After a moment, Risa says she is okay now, and Haruto quickly pulls away, embarrassed. She thanks him, assuring him she really just needed some food. Haruto looks at her with newfound determination. He confidently declares that he will definitely defeat the Demon King, and when that happens, he trails off into silence. Internally, he vows to use that moment to confess his feelings to her. Out loud, he simply announces he is heading out and practically vanishes from the room. Left alone, Risa blushes, highly suspicious of what he was about to say. She shakes off the thought, heading back inside the church while praying he just doesn't die again today. However, the exact moment she steps into the main hall, she sees it. Another coffin waiting for her. She sighs in utter defeat, knowing exactly what happened. Exhausted, she slumps down, muttering that even if she revives him, he is just going to die again anyway, making this whole hero business a massive pain. Risa immediately walks over to the coffin and uses her magic without even bothering to open the lid. The hero pops out, apologizing as always, but Risa is already turning away, telling him she is in a rush. Moving swiftly, she grabs Elysia, dragging the reluctant mage along to go exterminate a sudden slime infestation in the church basement. Haruto asks what is going on, and Risa requests his help to clear them out. Though Haruto is terrified of causing another party wipe, she assures him the slimes are incredibly weak, there is just a massive horde of them. Elysia immediately complains, arguing that if the hero is going, she isn't needed. Risa threatens that if they don't handle this properly, the strict chief priest will beat them up. Elysia stubbornly replies that she would rather be beaten up than tag along, noting that being a third wheel to two people who are so close is pure torture. Confused, Risa asks what she means, pointing out that Haruto barely talks to anyone. The hero quietly admits he hasn't spoken a single word to the mage yet. Before they can argue further, the chief priest barks at them to hurry up and get to the basement. Down in the underground levels, the church is completely infested with gross, multiplying slimes. Disgusted, Elysia suggests they should just burn the whole building down. Risa shouts that arson is definitely not an option. Without hesitating, Haruto draws his sword and dashes forward, swiftly cutting down every slime in the immediate area and making the floor squeaky clean. Amazed to see him actually acting like a proper hero, Risa praises his strength. Haruto thanks her, noting they need to move quickly and destroy the slime cores before they regenerate. Elysia, completely unimpressed, just mutters about wanting to go home. As they move deeper into the basement, Haruto takes point, mechanically cleaning up the slimes while the two girls chat behind him. Elysia boasts about her heritage, asking if Risa knows the Baloran family. Risa admits that even in a remote place like this, the name is famous. Bragging about her genius, Elysia explains she skipped grades, entered university at age 10, graduated in a year, and even rewrote parts of basic magic theory for her thesis. Up ahead, Haruto listens to their conversation like a background radio, enjoying the fact that he can just work efficiently without the pressure of having to speak. Noticing his silence, Risa calls out, hoping to get him to talk properly with his teammate. Haruto initially thinks this silent arrangement is perfect, but quickly realizes that avoiding communication is exactly what leads to his parties getting wiped out. Deciding to treat this as socializing practice, he chimes in, casually asking Elysia about her time at the National Central Magic University. She proudly puffs out her chest, detailing her elite track and boasting about passing the National High Mage certification on her first try. Curious, Elysia turns the question around, asking the priest and the hero about their own educational backgrounds. Risa cheerfully admits she has none. Haruto explains that he didn't go to university either, and casually mentions the only official certification he has, aside from being a recognized hero, is passing the 9th Field Imperial exam. Elysia screams in absolute shock. She explains to a confused Risa that the 9th Field is a legendary, impossibly difficult exam covering advanced strategy, warfare, and tactics. Elysia falls to her knees in despair, dramatically crying over losing a schooling battle to someone like him and whining about wanting to drink her potions to cope. Thoroughly confused by her tantrum, Haruto quietly notes that all his advanced knowledge still doesn't stop him from dying constantly. He turns around to check on them, only to freeze in his tracks. While he was distracted by the conversation, the slimes had completely ambushed the girls. Elysia is already covered in goop, and Risa is about to be completely engulfed. Staring at the bizarre, sticky situation unfolding before him, Haruto deadpans internally. He has studied tactics, warfare, and history under the realm's greatest mentors, yet not a single one of them ever taught him how to deal with this specific situation. Haruto starts freaking out, realizing he cannot even look at the girls right now, and using explosive magic to blow the slimes away isn't an option down here. He desperately tries to think of a way to deal with the horde without damaging them or the church. Suddenly, Elysia bursts through the sea of slimes, forcefully blowing them away and saving Riesa in the process. Astounded, Riesa asks what she just did. Elysia casually explains that she simply blasted magic from her entire body, though she is now completely out of mana. Riesa praises her genius and thanks her. Elysia immediately demands she show her gratitude with a potion, but the priestess flatly refuses. Annoyed, Elysia accuses her of being heartless after just saving her life. Riesa frantically explains that if the chief priest finds out she gave away a valuable potion, he will kill her. Elysia bluntly tells her to just die, then, before turning to the hero and demanding a potion from him instead, arguing this is his fault for not helping. Haruto hesitates, actively looking away from her. Riesa quickly intervenes, suggesting Elysia should probably put something decent on first, the slime ruining her clothes. After she gets dressed, Riesa wonders aloud why the two of them were the only ones attacked. Haruto guesses that these are mana-absorbing slimes. They likely reacted to the girls' high mana pools and their magical gear. Riesa realizes that if they had come down here without the hero, they would have been totally screwed. Haruto admits he let his guard down earlier, but promises not to let a single one escape now. As they move forward into a cave-like area of the basement, Haruto notes the core should be nearby. He senses Elysia staring at him and asks if something is wrong. She brushes it off, but internally, she is amazed. She watches him efficiently drive the slimes out without breaking a single sweat, noting that he is smart and strong, even if he isn't cute at all. Suddenly, Riesa shouts a warning. They turn around to find a genuinely massive slime towering in front of them. Haruto is confused, wondering how it grew so huge so quickly. Elysia, however, senses something familiar. She realizes the giant slime is radiating her exact mana signature. Horrified, she pieces it together. Her full-body magic blast didn't blow the slimes away. They absorbed it and merged into a boss. Panicking, she realizes that if the chief priest finds out she caused this, he will beat her. Hoping to hide the evidence, she grabs Riesa's hand, suggesting they leave this to the hero and head back up immediately. Riesa protests, but Elysia is already marching forward, arguing they will just get in the way. Suddenly, Haruto shouts for her to watch out. Elysia steps right onto the giant slime, and the gelatinous mass quickly engulfs her, pulling her up into its body. She screams for it to let her go as her clothes begin to dissolve once again. Riesa begs the hero to hurry up and save her. Without hesitating, Haruto covers the trapped mage with his cloak to preserve her privacy before cutting through the giant slime and destroying its core. He strikes the core, and the massive monster bursts, finally clearing the basement. Afterward, Riesa praises his work, and a flustered Elysia repeatedly thanks him for saving her. Riesa notes that throwing the cloak to hide her was a clever move. Haruto explains that when the two of them got caught earlier, he froze up, but this time his reaction speed was faster. He proudly states that his core principle is solving problems through trial and error, and he refuses to lose to a sticky situation like that ever again. After the chief priest electrocutes her, Elysia complains that she'll be knocked out before the training is even over. She insists this feels more like punishment than practice, but the chief priest calmly reminds her that all she has to do is land a single hit. When Elysia protests that her opponent isn't holding back, the chief tells her to take the training seriously. Looking for another approach, Elysia suggests chatting while they fight. The chief warns that talking could disrupt spell casting, but Elysia points out that real battles don't give mages time to concentrate. Accepting the logic, the chief agrees, and Elysia secretly celebrates, convinced her distraction strategy is working. She immediately brings up romance, wondering whether the chief priest has a boyfriend, only to earn a punch to the face. Even with a bruised cheek, Elysia keeps pressing the topic by bringing up dating preferences and matchmaking. The chief turns the conversation back on her instead. When Elysia dodges the question, magical restraints pin her to the ground until she finally admits she simply wants someone who loves only her. Satisfied, the chief releases the spell. After getting back on her feet, Elysia wonders why any of this training matters when monsters rarely threaten such a remote area. The chief's expression suddenly turns serious as she reveals that Militon has fallen to the Demon King's army. With Elysia's homeland under attack, returning stronger has become more important than ever. Elysia quietly admits she has nowhere to return to because her family abandoned her after learning about her potion addiction. The chief silently takes in her words before responding with another punch. Completely baffled by that reaction, Elysia soon learns the chief intends to keep her fighting for the church instead. Desperate to escape, she realizes she still needs to land one successful attack. Searching for an opening, Elysia brings up a difficult philosophical question about God's role in the war against the Demon King. The chief pauses to think, giving Elysia the chance to charge her powerful Grand Theory spell. Unfortunately, the chief notices immediately, sidesteps the attack with ease, and knocks Elysia flat once again. She remarks that she'll save that question for God someday before suggesting they spend the afternoon studying instead. Completely defeated, Elysia groans in frustration as Risa rushes over to heal her.
Here I am, know it's been a while. I was in denial about my love. Here I stand, I know I walked away. Had to find the